Hello, I'm Sharon Worth from the Ames History Museum. I'm here with Jerry Nelson and two of his sons, Chris and Matt. The Nelson Electric Company is our 2020 History Maker Award recipient. The Nelson Electric Company has been in existence for 112 years. This is likely the longest continuously owned and operated family business in Ames. A company in existence that long has some interesting stories to tell. We've asked the Nelsons to come together to share some of those stories. Let's begin with a little bit about your family. You have many generations that have been here in Ames. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, our family has been in Ames, or in the Ames area for 7 generations. I'm the fifth generation. Chris and Matt are the 6th generation, and their kids are the 7th generation. So we go back, clear back into the 1855, 1856 years. So my mother's family was the Brown family, and James and Rebecca Brown came out in 1856 to settle right up north of Soper's Mill, and they moved from Pennsylvania, and they lived there. The house is still there, actually. So, and it was a little town called Willow Grove at the time. It wasn't much. It was just the post office, which was in their house, and an old school, that country school was there. And it was a little town, but its sense is gone now. It's an abandoned town. On my mother's father's side was John Dodds, and they settled up in the same area in the Soper's Mill. They came in about 1861 up in the area. They farmed there for a number of years. There's still some Dodds that live up in there. But the Hughes family, the Doolittles, the Browns, and the Doddses all settled there, and they didn't go very far to find their husbands and wives. So those 4 families are pretty intertwined on genealogy side. So in fact, T.R. Hughes built the mill there as a wood mill, which later became Soper's Mill, and they bought it and they converted it to a grist mill. So T.R. Hughes came out in 1856 also as part of the government land opportunities that was there. So it's on my mother's side, and my father's side was his mother were the Haverleys, and they came in 1878. And C.E. Haverly came after the Civil War. They came, and he did a number of things. He was a miller by trade, but he also, in 1864, he was on the Ames City Council. He served for 8 years. He was the postmaster for 4 years. He was justice of the peace for 7 years, and he's on the school board for 7 years. So he was a pretty energetic type guy in looking at all the history there. So he was very involved in the history of Ames. So I'm in the process of going through some of the historical information on him. He's a pretty interesting guy. So on my father's family was the Nelsons, and he was kind of a late arrival to Ames. He came in 1903. So he came from Illinois, and he found a job at the City of Ames Electric Department and at the power plant. And then in 1908, he went into business for himself after they deemed electricity was safe enough to be in houses. So they opened it up to private contracting. So um, that's kind of the roots of our family in Ames. We still have a lot of family in the area, but that's kind of the roots of our 7 generations in Ames.
Wow, that goes back a long, long ways. Thank you. What's the earliest story that you know about the company business?
Oh, wow. The earliest story. I remember my grandfather doing the theater in Story City. He used to, and I think it was around 1915, and he loaded up his cart in the train every morning, and he would ride the train to Story City and work on the theater, wire the theater, and then they'd come home at night on the train. So, and we have an estimate. He must have done some residential work in Story City also. We have an estimate that he did to wire a house in Story City's the Dunway's house, and it was $54. I think $54.19 he would wire a house for. So considerable change from today, which depends on the technology of the house, is many, many, many times more than that.
$54 is hard to even conceive of that wiring a house. Wow.
I'd say the houses today maybe, they might be in the $9,000 to $10,000 range, probably up to maybe $50,000 or $60,000, depending on the size and the technology that goes into them. So that's how much our industry has really changed since the beginning, really.
So, Jerry, you said the Story City Theater. Is that the theater that's on Main Street now in Story City?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the earliest that I can remember my grandfather and my dad talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, boy, they're lucky to still have their theater on their Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a beautiful building. Who can tell us about World War II and all the involvement you had with teaching portable landing and et cetera on ships?
My dad, in 1942 to 45, taught at the university through the Department of Navy, and he taught people how to wire portable landing strips. They go in and set up a landing strip somewhere, and he would teach them how to wire landing strips. So that's about all I know about that particularly, but I know he did 3 years. He took it away from working in the business. There probably wasn't all that much work in the business at that point during the war, so he had the opportunity to do that, and he did that.
That's pretty fascinating to think about Ames having a part in that history, I think.
Yeah.
What is the most complex job that your company has been involved with?
I think that probably has to be the Memorial Union project out on ISU campus. In 1984, we put a new electrical service in the building, and just due to its size, it's 500,000 square feet, and there's 15,000 people that go through that building in a day. We changed the electric service, and they didn't want to close the building down entirely at any one time. That was not in the cards to do that. That was part of the scope of work, that the building was not going to close. So it's like giving a heart transplant. You just start at one end and do a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit, and in the end, everything comes back online. So there was a large medium voltage service, electric service in it that was new. What complicated things, the old service was in one end of the building and the new electrical service was in the other. So we had to um, uh, convert all those circuits from the old service to the new service on the other end of the building. And there's 5 sub distribution systems in the building, and there's probably over 125 electrical panels that needed to be rerouted from the old service to the new service. And you had to do this while the building was still up and running. You couldn't really close the building down for a power outage, a complete power outage. So that's pretty challenging. It took 2 years to do it. So just because of scheduling and power outages that you had to have. So that's probably our most complex job that we've done, I would guess. That was pretty challenging.
So was that rewiring the existing building? Was there any new construction involving the building along with that, or what?
No, it was just retrofitting all the old panels and converting them to the new electric service, just putting a new electric service in the building. That was all that was involved with that. But it was just due to the size of the service and the 5 substations and substations in the building and 125 panels, it took a long time to do that.
Did you recruit any students to the world of electrical work while you did that?
We might have during the summertime, because occasionally we hire summertime help just to fill in, give jobs to students, and usually construction picks up in the summertime, so it does lend ourselves to hiring students.
All right. Tell us about some of the most unique jobs your company's been involved with.
I think I get to take first stab at that one. One of the more unique projects we got to work on was the historic Park Inn in Mason City, which is the last remaining Frank Lloyd Wright hotel that's still standing. It underwent a $20 million historical renovation, and we had the opportunity to participate in that. It was a mess when it started, and when it came out the other end, it's something that's now internationally renowned, and people from all over the world come and visit and stay there. It was also a relatively complex project, a very expensive renovation. The light fixtures were all historically accurate and very expensive. There were well over $1.5 million worth of just light fixtures in that project, some of which were, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 a piece, as well as all of the nightstand light fixtures were all custom made in Japan and shipped over specifically for this project, based on the original designs of the building. So that was one to be pretty proud of. It was complicated. It was a really neat project, and what came out the other end was once in a career type of project.
It is really beautiful. We stayed up there, I don't know, probably I'll say 2 years ago now, and it is very, very amazing. Yeah, so I know what you mean about the light fixtures. They're just so beautiful, just beautiful. How long did you work on that job?
That was just a little over a year on that one too. There was a lot of work that had to be done to shore that building up and make it so that you could even start work on it.
Yeah, yeah.
It had been vacant for how many years, Chris, before they renovated it? It was a number of years, wasn't it?
Several years, yeah. It had deteriorated to the point that it had holes in the roof that were open to the sky, had mold, birds. It was really in danger of being unsalvageable.
So was there talk in the community about demolishing it?
I don't know the answer to that one, but I do know that they had to put a lot more, like most historical renovations, a lot more time, effort, and energy and money into fixing some of the deficiencies just to be able to start the project. They ended up replacing the foundation under half the building after the project started.
Wow. Yeah, well, like you said, in the end, it's a just amazing result from top to bottom.
I remember the grand opening, but we went up to just go take a walk through 2 or 3 days beforehand, and there were already people. Met a guy from Canada, another guy from Europe that had come over just to see it. So it was something that right out of the chute was something that people all over the world were paying attention to.
Wow. All right. How about the movie Twister? I think people want to hear about the movie Twister. Who's going to talk about that?
Well, I think it was Jerry, but he just disappeared.
Well,
So what I can tell you about that project was a lot of that movie was filmed on location in a lot of areas around central Iowa. The movie crews were based here in Ames, and we had the opportunity to help support the filming operations of that movie. And basically we were on call to go do electrical work wherever they were filming or building sets or doing other things related to the making of the movie. So we were doing things like converting a barn south of town into a soundstage where the meteorologists and the TV station studio was built. The house at the end of the movie where it ends up getting pretty destroyed by a tornado. That had a lot of work that needed to be done to it to hook up some of the equipment to create the wind effects. Interesting thing about that, and it's a little bit of movie magic, is they only show that house from two angles because those were the two angles that they fixed up. So the front and the side of the house were really nice, had nice drapes and blinds and painted, and the back side of the house was very abandoned. And even looking through the windows where they had the drapes, there were raccoons living in the house when they filmed the movie. So the inside of the house, not so nice.
wow. Well, what about the flying cows?
Well, they did a lot of the special effects for that movie in 2 hotel rooms down here on South Dayton. They brought in a whole bunch of supercomputers that were very cutting edge for the time and did a lot of that animation and the preliminary work with that out of those 2 hotel rooms. So I'm sure that that's where the flying cows came from.
That's really funny to think about those kinds of things happening here too in a little South Duff hotel room. That's not what we usually think about when we think about Ames, Iowa.
Yeah, that was kind of a unique project. They called us, Warner Brothers called us to hook up just 3 trailers for their staff and a trailer for their costumes behind the old Ramada Inn either on South Duff. And we just completed that. And then they brought in 6 more other trailers. So we wired them up. And then they asked us to look at the house in Eldora. And so we set that scene up for them. And then the props building in Hubbard, we wired that so they could build their props, their combine that they dropped in the middle of the road down by, I can't remember, it was down by Slate, down by Maxwell, I think is where they dropped it. And then the weather center out by Napier. And I think maybe you covered that, Chris, their weather center. So that was kind of an unusual project. Warner Brothers, after we got it all done, they wrote us a nice letter to thanking us for being on call for them 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. It seems like they do all their shooting during the day, but then setting up for the next day, they wanted you after hours, a lot of it. So we made kind of a little extra effort, and it was kind of an exciting project. And after seeing the movie, I think Chris looked it up, and it was like it's a $500 million movie or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it grossed at the box office over the years.
Yeah, over 500 million. So it was a pretty major movie. You know, they had Helen Hunt and who was the guy?
Bill Paxton,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Gary
So,
Ellis.
yeah. So it was kind of a fun project. It's an unusual project. We'll probably never do another one like that.
So do you have autographed copies, photographs for all the stars, or any souvenirs?
Not really. No, never.
Pictures and memories.
Okay.
Yeah, memories. Yeah, they were pretty hard to connect up with. They kept them sheltered pretty well, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So how long did that work go on? How long does it take to wire a movie?
I don't know. I would guess they were probably in Iowa 3 to 4 months probably, and then they filmed another part of the segment of the movie in I think Kansas or Oklahoma. But yeah, it was kind of an exciting project. You know, the house in Eldora looked like $1 million house on the front, but on the back side, it had been abandoned for years, and the birds were flying in and out, and it was not in good shape.
So is the house still here today? Do you know, up there in Eldora?
Yeah, I think it's still there. They put a jet engine out underneath the windmill, and they started it up, and they kept throwing debris and everything in the wind stream of it to make it look like a tornado, and that's what they filmed on the house. Actually, the scene was only like 15 or 20 seconds, but they spent a lot of money and a lot of time just on those few seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, a different kind of electrical work we don't usually think about, and I have to say, I don't know that probably very few people think of Nelson Electric when they see that movie.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again now that we're have developed a little interest in it again.
That could be true for all of us in on this today, because it gives you a different perspective as you watch the movie, when you think about local people being involved in some of the local aspects and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
All right, what's next, guys? Is Matt going to tell us some things?
Oh yeah, like I can. Yeah, that's the relative newcomer here. I've only been here for 6 years, and most recently 6 years. But as far as what Nelson Electric looks, we have the main office here in Ames. And it was 2009 opened a Waterloo office, and then 2011 opened a Carroll office. Say, over the course of the year, we usually about 65 employees, all 3 offices. Ames is usually the big one, just by a little bit, just kind of how things naturally work out over the course of any given year.
So what's the next? If Ames is usually the largest, which is next?
Next, well, currently it's Carroll.
Carol.
Yep.
Interesting. I think it would be nice if each of you men would tell us what you do with the company. What is your job? How are you involved?
I'm in HR and payroll, and then anything else that falls off of either one of their desks on any given day.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
We all wear a lot of different hats here. I support the operations of all 3 offices. I do a little bit of each of strategy. I oversee the administration side relating to accounting, but I also do pre-construction, a little bit of project management, a lot of technology stuff and leading technology initiatives, other initiatives that we have internal to the company. Big one of which now is involving lean construction, helping us become more efficient. From a background perspective, I think Jerry and I are both licensed master electricians. I went to Iowa State in actually chemical engineering and civil engineering, and ended up being in electrical. So just we all have our fingers in a lot of different things, but we also have a fantastic team of people that actually you know, are the boots on the ground, and that get things done. And you know, we're the name on the door, but a lot of people have passed through here that have helped contribute to that history, and without them, we wouldn't be at 112 years. So they're as much a part of the story as we are.
So I'm just curious, Jerry. So when you went to Iowa State, did you think, oh, I have no interest in electrical engineering?
That's exactly what I thought. It took a little while for me to come back around. I actually graduated from Iowa State with a master's in civil engineering, civil and construction engineering, and worked for general contractors in Chicago, and then with a national general contractor out of Des Moines. So I traveled a lot for several years, and was out of the family business for about 10 years after I got out of school, and then came back to rejoin the company when my uncle Paul retired. And that was around the same time as our kids were getting to be school aged, and we wanted to find our forever home. So we moved back to Ames, put our kids in school, and well, the rest, they say, is history.
Would you tell us again what your role is in the company, what you're doing these days?
Yeah. I still do a little bit of project management. I'm working outside of the office right now. Have been most of the summer because of the COVID thing, but I've been able to work remotely and I still get on the server and everything. So it's worked out fairly well for the most part. But my side of the business is project management and estimating, and that's kind of my responsibility of that part. And then Chris and Matt are more on the admin side of the business.
Okay, great. Well, anything else the Nelsons want to tell us before we end our session today?
Thank you for the opportunity, Sharon, and for awarding us the award this year for the Ames History Makers Award. So we really appreciate the opportunities that we're able to at least get together on the internet anyway, through Zoom and everything. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and we thank you all, Jerry, Chris, and Matt, for joining in today. We appreciate that you took time to share some stories with us. History is all about people and their stories. I want to encourage anybody listening to record their own stories. Write them down, make an auto recording, whatever it takes to get your story down so that your story is not lost. So thanks for joining us today. Bye now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Sharon. Bye-bye.